everyone. Thank you for tuning in to Rise Above TV, where we are empowering humanity and supporting unity. You're watching P3, the place where we feature individuals who have tapped into their power, passion, and purpose. I'm your host, Janie Terrazas, and today I'm very grateful and thrilled to be introducing the fabulous Shavannah Speaks Moore. And she's going to tell us why that is her middle name. She's a global empowerment expert, and I'm very much looking forward to hearing more about her story, what she's doing to help humanity, to help better humanity, and more importantly, to really live a life that is authentic to her.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me, Janie. I'm excited to share everything with you today. So I don't know if you want me to just go ahead and jump in.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about, the title Global Empowerment Expert, because that's a hefty duty title right there.
Yes, it is. It is. And it is very a heavy assignment as well, but I absolutely love it. It's so funny because I'm actually the little girl. I'm actually the woman that I needed when I was a little girl. And I often tell that when I talk to my clients and I tell my story, because one thing about when we're young, we have these big dreams and these big aspirations, but truth be told, I really knew nothing about business as a young girl. This isn't something we talked about around the dinner table. It wasn't something that was talked about a lot in my household at all. So I had no idea what it meant to be in business and, what it meant to speak and travel the world. I had no insight on any of those things. But I started my career a few years ago, actually. My career when I was laid off from my corporate job. I have an extensive background in mortgages and customer service and all that good stuff. So I've always been such a positive person in anything that I did. I was always that person that everyone came to, like, Shavannah, why are you always so positive? Why are you, when we have loans stacked up to the rooftop, you're always that person that kind of brings everybody back to make everybody grounded. You're always that person that's that positive person that people can go to, they can talk to, and you're always empowering people. So when I lost my job, I ended up getting laid off back in 2013. And it's funny because we're talking about passion today. So when I was laid off from my corporate job, I was literally thrown into the industry. I just had to figure something out. At the time, my husband and I were separated. I was pregnant. It was literally right before Thanksgiving, and I lost my job. So I was like, okay, what the heck am I supposed to do? So long story short, I ended up pursuing my passion, which was cooking. I absolutely love to cook because it's just something I love. I grew up with my grandmother, so it's always something that brought so much sunshine to me, and just to see people eating and they're loving your food and just the love that I put in the food when I'm cooking. And I've always been a heartful person, so I just love to make people feel good, right? However I can do that. So I started that career. During my time in that career, I had a lot of women asking me, Shavannah, how did you do this? How did you take all the stuff that you've been through, all the stuff that you went through growing up, all of the obstacles that you're facing in your life, how did you turn that into something so positive? How did you turn that into a global movement? So I was like, well, I don't know. I mean, I'll show you, I guess. So long story short, again, I started speaking from there. I started getting asked to tell my story and share my story all over the world. And I ended up writing books, and I started doing all of these amazing things. And then I ended up finding myself depressed along the way, and I couldn't figure out why. So much like yourself, Janie, when it comes to just mindfulness and mindset and, human behavior and all of these things, I had to figure it out. I had to figure out what that bigger thing was for me, because yes, I was following my passion. Yes, I was getting asked to speak all over the world, but I still felt empty. I still felt unfulfilled in a sense. So I ended up getting a coach and I started really just studying human behavior and trying to figure out why I was depressed. Why, after all of this success that I've had, why am I back at square one? Why do I feel like I felt when I was laid off? You know, like my world was coming down on me. I felt hopeless. I felt, you know, just not enough. I just didn't feel worthy of what I was doing. Even though I was amazing at it, a part of me still felt like, what is it out there? What is out there for me? There has to be something bigger for me. So basically, once I started speaking and started coaching, and I got my coach and I started really studying and really diving deep into who I was and the core of who Shavannah is, that's when I really discovered, you know, my mission and my goal is just to really empower women all over the world and help them to find their voice so that they can lead a more purposeful life, just like I was able to do. So that's kind of how the concept came around, global empowerment speaker. I love empowering people. That's the art of what I do. I feel like that's the foundation of anything that I do, whether it's in the kitchen, whether it's on a stage, whether it's with my client. I am always empowering women to find their voice and what really makes them who they are so that they can lead a more purposeful life. So I know that was a lot, but I tried to like shorten it up as much as I could for you.
No, I don't want you to shorten it up at all. And all of it is important, but obviously so much has happened. That's like the cliff notes, and there's things that happen in between there. And all of these lessons that you learn, you weren't really afraid to try something new. Where do you think that, and you know, funny enough, it really is the mindset of like enthusiasm and excitement for the unknown versus like, oh, you know, and obviously there is a little bit of that shows up when we are stepping into new territory. But it seems like with you, the majority of your attitude and outlook and feeling from the inside was like excitement. So where do you think you got that from?
I think it was more so just the drive to want change. Because like I said, I did not grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth. We made the best of what we had, but we didn't have a lot. And I think just viewing my community in an essence of that's all there was, I knew there had to be more. So I was hungry enough to be the one to step out and say, you know what? I'm going to go seeking. And one thing I know is that whatever you're seeking is always seeking you. So I got hungry. It's something inside of me just knew there was so much more. You know, so I just got that drive. I got that ambition, and I was just like, I'm going to get it. I don't care what it is. I have to figure this out. I have to, because something would not let me go until I did. And I think too, part of that being when I was laid off. So I had to figure it out. And I know as women, most of us are very resilient. So whether you're a mom, a wife, or just a woman yourself, we always find a way. We always make a way out of no way. So I think by nature, I just had that resilience. However, just knowing how I grew up and just seeing, I had a glimpse of what the future could look like for me if I was able to travel the world, if I was wealthy. So once I got that glimpse, I got that vision, I was like, oh my gosh, I want that. I have to figure this out. I have to go get that so I can show other women, no matter where you come from, if you set your mind to something and you truly believe it in your heart with everything in your heart, you can make it happen. No matter what comes up, no matter what problems arise, you can make it happen. And I want it to be that example, to show other women what's possible when you believe. So I always tell people, I am proof of what's possible when you believe in yourself.
Absolutely. And that really, that self-belief and self-confidence and self-worth, you know, that is a process for us to return to that natural state that really is our organic state, is to feel whole, that we are worthy and that we are whole and that we are significant. And I love that you help other people return to that. It's almost like I call it the sacred heart, that sacred fire within. You also mentioned the word voice. And I really do believe there's so much power in voice. I don't want to go all esoteric and scientific on the power of words, but how we use our voice, we can use it to uplift others and or to break others down. We can use it to spread positivity and wisdom and intelligence, you know, or ignorance and hate. And our voice now more than ever, we need to take accountability and responsibility for how we use it. And it is tied to our power. It's an instrument that has been bestowed upon us. And we can use it for healing too. And it's not just how we speak to others, but it's about how we speak to ourselves. So I love that you brought up voice. Tell me a little bit about what owning your voice and being comfortable, speaking your truth. Because that in itself is a process, getting comfortable saying no when we mean no and saying yes when we mean yes.
Absolutely. I think for me, that's the most powerful thing that a woman or anybody, honestly, for that matter, anybody can do is find their own unique voice. And we can take that in so many different directions. And I think for me, the moment that I realized I found my voice was the moment I felt free. And it wasn't until shortly after I got laid off and I started my business and I started traveling the world and touring and speaking and all of those things, I ended up getting asked to be in a book. Now, I was not the smartest cookie in school, okay? So I always tell people, listen, if I can do this, anybody can. So, but I didn't like writing. I didn't like any of that stuff. So when I got asked to be in a book, my first thought was, why me? You know what? I don't have anything that anybody wants to hear, right? And like, nobody cares about my story. Nobody cares about my voice. I'm just a little country girl, with big dreams. And that's just what I thought it was. I started to believe the stipulations and the statistics that society had placed upon me. But I had to recreate my story. And I remember when I got that offer, a part of me really doubted it. I sat with it for days and I was like, I don't know. But I remember I was writing out my story. I was just started to write just to kind of see what would come up for me. And I remember one of my Toastmaster colleagues, at the time it was the president of Toastmasters Club, and he read it and he was like, oh my gosh, Shavannah, this is so powerful. Like, you can free so many women just by your story. And when he said that, I was like, wow, yeah, I guess so, because to me, it was just some things that had happened to me growing up. But again, I didn't think that was important enough to make vocal, to have women around the globe hear my story and think that was going to change anything. However, once he made that comment, I was like, well, maybe I should just do it. Maybe I'll just get in a book. Now, finding your voice can be very scary. And the reason I say that is because the very first story that I told about some things that had happened in my childhood, my biggest fear was, what is my family going to think, right? Well, ladies, I know you've been there. What are they going to think if I share this part of my story? How are they going to judge me? So all of these thoughts kept coming up, but I can say to you, that is the moment that I can truly say that my voice was heard. Because once I let it out there, once that book was published and it went international, it was done. It was done. But I felt so free. And that feeling that I had, I just want other women to experience that, because that's a feeling like no other. Like, out of all the accomplishments that I've had ever in my life, being on national TV, touring the world, speaking on global stages, I think that was the most liberating for me. And to have that feeling for myself, and if I knew that I could do that for other people, I was like, oh, that's a game changer. Game is over. Because once our voices are heard, there's absolutely nothing else that we are not able to do. So it starts with finding your voice. Once you're comfortable with that and you're comfortable with who you are as a person and you own that, you are completely unstoppable.
I love it. I love it. And it's so true. And it's one of the biggest gifts that we can give ourselves is finding our voice, is tapping back into that, and recognizing that oftentimes early on in our childhood, society, cultural things that the family says or teachers say to you, whatever, we start to shut it down and we start to bite our tongue, and before we know it, it literally almost feels like paralyzing to use it. So it's so important to open that up and honor it as you do. So I want to thank you for that. You said you had 5 children, and so they all have their own individual voices. And I know we've all been under quarantine, and so that's a lot of little ones. Or I don't know what the age range is. I don't know if you want to say
it's a lot of little.
It is a lot of little ones. So, what's like a sort of a mindful parenting thing that you do? Because oftentimes parents lose sight of the differences between their children, and there's a certain way they want all of them to be, and they all have their own obviously unique personalities. And so what is like a real simple thing maybe that you instill in your children, or something that you say to them to help them remember that their voice does matter, even if maybe it does go against what you would say?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest thing for me that I've learned, once I found out who I really was and what my voice held and how much power my voice held, my biggest thing for my kids is to allow them to be who they are and just be free. And I'm not saying, let them walk all over you. Like, I still have boundaries and standards as a parent. However, I noticed they are the closest to who we are as a society, as a human nature. Kids are closest to, I hope this makes sense how I'm going to say this, but they're closest to the version of their source or their inner being, right? Because once society gets a hold of you, like for me, I had to go through all of these stages to really get back to that level of being able to be okay with who I was. Like, kids, they just are free. They're like, whatever, they are just who they are. Seriously, I had to sit with that because they were just, all of them are different. Every single one of them are different in their own light. And through meditation one day, I really had to sit with that and say, you know what? They are closer to who they really are, spiritually than I was at that age. I didn't have anybody to tell me, Shavannah, you can be all that you can be. You can, follow your dreams. I didn't have any of that positivity or any of that stuff growing up, but I want to instill that in them so that they can find their voice now and be okay with who they are as an individual. So I make it a point to let them just be. Honestly, just be. Like, yeah, you're not gonna like tear the house up and do crazy stuff. However, if I know, the boys are like yelling or they're just in their own little zone and they're playing and their creative juices are flowing, I just let them be. Honestly, I sit back and I watch because I'm like, wow, each of them are so different. Like, literally, they all have different talents and different gifts. So my goal is to bring that out of them. So if they have anything that they're interested in, I let them do it. Like, I know my 5-year-old, last month, I think it was, I have vision boards, and I call them manifestation boards, but they're like all over my house. And the one in my room, he was like, Mommy, what is, all of that stuff on that board? Because he's starting to see like different things that were on that board, like cars and houses and different things that I've been manifesting over the years. He's actually seeing them in the physical. So to him, he was like, well, how is it that it's on that board, but it's actually happening in real life too? So I had to really sit him down and explain to him, well, Preston, this is how Mommy was able to create the lifestyle that we have today. So just little different things like that. I feel that is very important because I had no one to tell me that. I had to discover that for myself. So I want them to at least be aware of it. Now, what they do with that awareness is, of course, is going to be on them, but I want them to be aware of what's possible for them even now. Just be who you are now. And as you grow into that awareness and more about who you are spiritually, mentally, and physically, then you too can create the lifestyle that you desire to live. So I just let them dream big. Like my daughter, she always says, well, when I get my, and she's been saying this for years, like when she gets her house, she's going to go ahead and get her, her maid or butler or whatever, and she's going to take care of her mommy and dad. And she's been saying that for years, and I just let her dream on. I'm like, okay, thank you. I'm glad that you're going to take care. So I just embrace it. I encourage it, and I just make them aware of who they are and what they can become early on. So then when they get older, they won't have to go through the challenges I had to go through to discover that.
Yeah, it's almost like there's this really interesting meme where there's a little child and he's got these amazing wings on him, and the parents have like those things that you use to cut the shrubs with, and they're basically cutting off the wings, like indoctrinating them. And then we become these, we're really butterflies, and then we turn into thinking that we're caterpillars, and then we got to go through our metamorphosis to return to the fact that, oh, we are butterflies, and we do have wings. And so you honor their imagination when they have these ideas. So many times parents shut things down, and it's like, no, that's silly, that's stupid, don't talk like that, what are you talking about, or whatever. And you really give them that room to use their mind and their imagination, how it really is intended to be used. And
Exactly.
And you also mentioned how and I agree with you, and it makes perfect sense, that children are still operating from their heart center. They're not really conditioned to start operating from the head. So they're about like 7. By that time, and that kind of gets beat out of them, and they kind of become more worldly, right? But they are operating from here. So they're sensing everything, they're feeling everything, and they really are still connected to their purity and their innocence. And that's another part of our spiritual journey, is returning to our innocence. That doesn't mean that we're like not ever going to make mistakes and we're always following that straight line, but we recognize that there's a compass that we can align with. And they align with these virtues like compassion and integrity and, understanding, and like you said, self-esteem and belief. So I love that you get that. So when I meet other, people that are parents and they're teaching this to their kids, I'm like, yay. So thank you very much.
And you know what, Janie? I didn't always get it. So I don't want anybody watching this to think that you're a bad mom or you're a bad parent because you don't encourage that. Listen, it was a journey for me. And I can really tell you, it was not until I became one with myself and really started doing a lot of soul searching that I even discovered, like, wow, they are the closest to the point of where I'm trying to get to right now. So why not just let them be? And it took a lot of spiritual guidance. It took a lot of meditation. It took a lot of, just really awareness of who is Shavannah? Like, who am I at the core? Never mind the global, never mind the national, never mind any of that. Who am I? And once I discovered that and I became free in who I was and I embraced that, that's when my eyes opened and I was like, wow, I'm just going to let them be. That's all I can do at this point because they're closer to their inner being. And like you said, the childlike ways that they have now than I am. I'm trying to get back to that point. But once you get there, oh my gosh, it's such a beautiful thing.
It is. And I honor you greatly for all the personal work you've done. And like you said, it's really giving yourself the room and having some compassion for yourself, because what you don't know, you don't know. And until you know it, now you've got that awareness, like you said, and that's all about being mindful. The self-awareness is everything. And what you want your children to be, we must be first, because they are learning from our example. And so that work is very important. So thank you. Now, obviously, you are living a purposeful, passionate life. There's a lot that you do. What are some of the self-care practices that you do for yourself, just to make sure that you stay restored and energized for all that you give to your family and your clients in the world?
The biggest thing, honestly, for me is taking care of me first. And what I mean by that is I make sure that I make it a mission every single week. If not, well, of course, now we can't really go anywhere and do too much. However, I do make it a mission to make sure that I do for myself before I do anything else. And that's with my family, with my clients, with anyone. I make sure Shavannah is okay first. So just some things I do typically on a daily or a weekly basis is I always take my vitamins. I know that's probably like, at Shavannah, but I do take vitamins. I take my vitamins so I can stay energized and make sure that I'm filled with nutrients and things that I need to fulfill my daily activities. I don't exercise as much as I should. However, I move a lot. So I always find myself doing like yoga or just random exercises that I find online, or people that I know, if they have exercise group, I always try to be as active as I can in that. And the reason I am adamant about moving is because fear hates movement. So one of the things in my life on this journey that tends to come up quite a bit when as you go higher, fear starts to come up. The imposter syndrome starts to come up and you start to wonder, am I, should I, could I, whatever. So the more I move, I feel like that eliminates more of my fear because it makes me want to do something. So if I get up one day and I feel like I just am out of it, I don't feel like doing anything, I don't want to get on the phone with anybody, I just get up and I move. I start moving, I start dancing, because that gets my momentum up, that gets me active, and it makes me want to do something. So definitely my vitamins, I would say, and moving a lot. And then I make sure every week I do something for myself. And that could be anything. That can be a spa day. That can be just going to get sushi. That can be just sitting outside in nature. Behind my house, there's like a lot of trees, and I love nature. I'm such a nature girl. So I would just go sit outside and watch the trees and just brainstorm on what my next move is. How can I show up bigger in the world? How can I impact more people? But to me, that's self-care. You know, that's something that I'm doing for myself. And then when I show up for my family and my clients, I make sure that I can show up 100%. But those are just some of the things that I'm adamant about that cannot be, you know, I can't, it's non-negotiable in essence. So that's a must. In order for me to show up, I have to do at least the minimum of that.
That's awesome. I love it. And one of my 7 positive daily habits is move your body for at least 5 minutes a day. So like you said, if I stretch, or if I like jump around and dance around, or do jumping jacks, just do it. It's also to sort of honor, you know, my heart, and really like feel that energy coursing through. And so, yeah, that's a great one. And everything that you mentioned, like you said, ties into self-care. It should be a priority for all of us. And what that looks like for everyone could be a little bit different. But even what you mentioned, they're very simple, practical things. And it's important for us to create those healthy habits. So,
and let me say, can I say one more thing?
Yeah, please.
Something that I do every single morning before any of the kids get up is I always try to meditate or pray or both. And I always journal. And it's so crazy because I literally am creating the dream life through journaling. Like everything that I've written in my journal has manifested. So that's something that I again, that's another thing that's non-negotiable for me. You know, I know a lot of people feel a lot of different ways about journaling. Some may not know how, but one thing that was very, very, very important for me was to write out what my dream life was. Because like I told you before, growing up, I had access to none of this stuff. So I started to write it out. I started to recreate my story and write out how I wanted my life to look as if I was already living that lifestyle. And then it started to manifest in the physical realm. So journaling is something that I do on a daily basis. I may have let a day or two go by where I got really busy or whatever, but for the most part, it's something that I have to do every day before anybody wakes up. I'll, take my vitamins and I'll come sit on my couch or go outside and I'll sit there and I'll journal. What is the life that I'm creating? How many clients do I want? How do I want my world to look? And I write it out as if it has already happened. So that's just another tip or nugget.
There's just so many bits of wisdom, it's like pieces of gold that one acquires throughout their life. And now you have like a little bucket of all this gold, and so now you're just sharing. It's like, oh, here's another little piece of wisdom, by the way. and we can use more of that for sure. Please let everyone know how they can get in touch with you. I know you mentioned there's a variety of products and services, and you speak and all these things. So how could they learn more about you and what you offer?
Yeah, definitely. ShavannahMoore.com is my website, and there you can find anything that I have going on, speaking engagements, books, anything, courses, programs. So my website is just ShavannahMoore.com. I'm on all social media sites as Shavannah Speaks Moore, Twitter, I don't really know Twitter, but Instagram, Facebook, all the social media, YouTube, just Shavannah Speaks Moore.
I really want to thank you for being here on our show today, sharing your voice and your words of wisdom. And I really encourage everyone to go check out Shavannah Moore's pages. She always shares uplifting, inspirational information, and you are a beacon of light. So thank you for helping others.
Thank you for having me. I was so excited to partner with you on this. So thank you. And thank you for all the work that you're doing in the community, in the world, to serve humanity. It means a lot.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for tuning in to Rise Above TV, where we are empowering humanity and supporting unity. Be sure to tune in to next week's episode of P3 when we'll meet Christy Jones, holistic health and mindfulness coach. You aren't going to want to miss what she has to say about power, passion, and purpose. Subscribe to our YouTube and podcast channels. Till next time, peace be in us.